we're fortunate enough to welcome Daniel from the COBWEBS channel here on the show tonight. I'll bring him right in. There you are.
Hey, man. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for doing the show. I know, life is busy for everyone that's doing YouTube, regardless of where they're at. You have found awesome success with your channel for a great reason, and you're a family guy. So I really appreciate you carving out the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the kind words. And thank you for looking handsome for all of us tonight.
I try, man. I try. It's it's a cross that I bear. What can I do? So one of the things that stood out to me right away is, so I ask a lot of people this, and maybe I'm just reaching, but are you a fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000?
I'm really not. I know a lot of people are, but I don't understand the appeal of like watching a movie, but also listen to people make jokes during it. Like, if I want that experience, I'll probably just watch a movie with friends. But when I watch a movie, I kind of just want to watch a movie. So I don't know.
Gotcha.
I never really got the appeal of it.
Yeah, well, and I ask because a lot of the movie, like I'll see you cover movies on the channel, and I'm like, oh, that's a movie I've seen on Mystery Science Theater 3000. And like,
oh, okay.
It's in a weird way, like I found that show when I was in like middle school, in like the early 90s, early to mid 90s. And it actually like gave me an appreciation. Like I'm like, I kind of like movies that just try and don't quite get there. Like I love the ambition. Like just go ahead and like make your art, and even like a bad movie has a place. Which is something that I clearly, see on your channel, where there might be, something you're talking about and you're like, it's like kind of corny. It's from the 60s, but I really enjoy it. And like, I love, that kind of outlook, because I think a lot of people just sort of get caught up in the, is it good or is it bad? And is there really anything as like any such thing as a bad movie? Daniel.
I'm kind of the kind of person where like if I like a movie, then I pretty much don't think it's bad. And then a lot of people will, and they'll be like, well, it's bad because this. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. That's kind of part of the charm. I think you put it all together, it's good. So I'm glad Mystery Science Theater gave you an appreciation for those kind of movies, because I'm like such a nerd where I'm just like, hey, I like those movies. Like, stop dunking on those guys.
Yeah. And I think like you had brought up, I saw your you had subscribed to Vinegar Syndrome, your latest video that you put out there, and you talk about Reptilicus, and I'm like, oh, I've seen Reptilicus. It's actually when they brought Mystery Science Theater back like 5 years ago.
I just watched it, actually.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I liked it, actually. I heard it was terrible, so I did not have high hopes, but like the special effects are technically terrible. But for me, with a horror movie, if the effects are practical, then like 99.9% of the time, I'm going to like it. So like the effects are just like this little puppet monster just kind of hopping along like all these miniature houses and stuff. But like, I found that very enjoyable, like I kind of found that more enjoyable than just watching. Like for me, like I'm not into most of the modern kaiju movies, because like I just feel like I'm watching a cartoon. It's just like it's just CGI. But when it's something physical, I just think it's fun, and the characters are like kind of charming, and it's a Danish American co-production. So there's this whole sequence where these characters just go out for a day on the town in Denmark, and it's like the movie stops for an infomercial for Denmark tourism. And it's like very charming. I was like, this does look like a nice place. I kind of want to go there.
Yeah, it's like here's a little advertisement for from the tourism industry. They put it in the rider. You had to get that in Reptilicus.
That's exactly what it is. I think it's because like, Danish people are making it, and they knew they had partnered with an American company to like distribute it. So they're like, we need to sell our country in addition to selling this movie. It was interesting.
Yeah, it's like Mac and me giving McDonald's the the floor there for a minute for a whole like music video production, pretty much.
Yeah, there's a bad movie I've actually never seen. I've seen like the YouTube clips, I've seen the kid go on the wheelchair like down the cliff, but I've never actually seen the movie.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's no E.T., that's for sure.
Sure.
Now, I also, so you and
Vinegar Syndrome releases it, I'll buy it and I'll watch it.
Yeah. If Vinegar, okay, well, maybe they will. That's one of the interesting things that you were talking about in that video is like you kind of blind buy some of these if they just look like they're sort of up your alley.
Oh yeah, that's mostly what I do, honestly, is blind buying stuff.
And then you're like, you know, I watched all those Amicus videos, like all the, like I had
Oh, thanks,
no
man.
idea that stuff even existed. I'm like, I thought I was a horror fan, and I had no idea that there were like dozens of these anthologies. That's it, seemingly for like almost 2 decades straight, or a decade and a half straight, you know, just a whole bunch of anthologies. If you had to pick, like, if someone were like, Daniel, what 3 anthologies should I work into my spooky season rotation? Which ones would you tell them to check out?
Are we talking about Amicus anthologies, or are we just talking about anthologies in general?
It can be whichever. Yeah, it can be whichever. That just sort of
Okay.
kicked off my thought, because I know you also dove into like the Tales from the Crypt, and was there a Vault of Horror as well?
Yeah, those are Amicus too, actually.
Oh, they are. Okay.
They are, yeah, which is interesting because Tales from the Crypt became like a big TV show in the 90s, but it was, well, it was originally comic books, but then it was just like this Amicus movie in the 70s. Yeah, I'm going to say I will throw in, you know what? I almost want to say Tales from the Crypt, but I'm actually not. I'm going to throw in what's actually my favorite Amicus anthology, which is The House That Dripped Blood, which all centers around this kind of spooky house, and it opens up with this inspector coming to investigate a disappearance, and the realtor is like, oh, there have been all of these terrible things that have happened in this house, and then you get different stories, and every story is good, like, and that's pretty remarkable for an anthology. So I really love that one. It's got Peter Cushing and it's got Christopher Lee, so it's got those classic icons that people are going to recognize. And then I'm going to go more modern for the 80s. I think I can reach it. Yeah. So here's an underrated one I like. It's called After Midnight. I just randomly watched this on streaming one day, and it's good. All of the interesting thing, it has no supernatural elements. So all of the segments are like, you know, things that can happen. I think there's one where some wild dogs, and then there's one with killers and such. And it's also an interesting one because the wraparound becomes the final segment. It's about like these students going to their teacher's house to, like, you know, hear more. I think he's like a teacher of like English or folklore or something like that, to hear stories. And it's another one where all the segments are good, so I really like that one. And then I'm just gonna throw in the classic. It's maybe my favorite anthology, which is Tales from the Dark Side. Amazing.
Oh
movie.
yeah, yeah, nice. Hell yeah, great mix there. And I see here Eli pops in. He says Tales from the Dark Side. There he is. Yeah. Creep Show and Body Bags. You know, I still haven't seen Body Bags, and I have no good reason for not having seen it. Have you seen that one? Should I check it out?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's fun. 2 of the segments are directed by John Carpenter, and then one's Toby Hooper. It's kind of interesting because, like, the first segment almost feels like John Carpenter reworking Halloween, and it's really good. And then the final segment is Toby Hooper, and it's starring Mark Hamill, and it's like super, super dark. And then the middle segment is this really goofy thing about this guy who's going bald, and he gets this like experimental drug to grow out his hair. And you know, it gets zany from there, and it's real goofy. So it's kind of like, it's real totally inconsistent, but it's fun. And John Carpenter actually acts in it as like our crypt keeper host for all the stories.
Yeah, I've seen like a, you know, a review or coverage on it, and I'm like, well, that's kind of fun, because he just always, I know everyone says like John Carpenter's just such a grump. So it's fun to see him have a little bit of fun. And then I mean, Creep Show.
Oh, for sure. And it's fun to see him,
you know.
like,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah. Creepshow's awesome. I was gonna say, I think everybody thinks of John Carpenter as like a terrible actor, because if you watch him in The Fog, it's like this infamously terrible moment where he's like, "Father, can I get paid?" And he's like very embarrassed by that moment, but he brings it in Body Bags. I think he's probably not capable of acting seriously, but like he can ham it up, you know.
Yeah, that's what it's. Yeah, it's like like you said, the Crypt Keeper kind of vibe. So he just gets to be silly and over the top. We got Jamie Hart in the chat. What's happening, Jamie?
Hello, Jamie.
Great to see you. Looks like what movie did you see? The running joke is that Jamie Hart has seen every movie in the theater. Oh, Mac and Me. That. There you go. Yep, saw Mac and Me in the theater. Where you at, Jamie? And then she showed up. And then we got Mark from Tales from the Shelf. How you doing, Mark? Great to see you. Great to see you. He was last week's guest. We talked for like 2.5 hours, Daniel. It was wild. That's why I had to reach out and ask you. Like, dude, be real with me, because I can go forever. Especially if we're on the same wavelength. Like, it's dangerous, man.
Sure. He followed me on
Yeah,
Instagram right after you shared this. So what's up, man?
yeah. Mark, if you have not checked out Daniel's channel, man, get ready for the rabbit hole. It's like it's my go-to now. I'm like, there's
Oh,
a
thanks, dude.
plethora of videos in there. Oh man, it's once especially when I'm like, damn you, YouTube, why did you hide this from me for so long? You know, like I'll sit there and like reload just to like try to find something new, and they always reload the same couple videos, and I'm like, no, give me something new. So yeah, really pumped to have stumbled upon your channel. And I gotta ask, like, I don't know if you must have heard the intro where I'm like, you could probably watch 10 movies a day and then recite the plots without, missing a beat or getting confused. Do you like low key write little notes or scripts, or do you have a teleprompter, or like, what's your secret, man? Because it's just like, it's astounding to me. When I watch one of your videos, I'm like, all right, dude, better step up your game. Shit.
Oh, thanks, dude. I write notes most of the time, but just like a few like little bullet points. If I'm doing a video that's like a dedicated review on one movie, then I definitely have notes. But again, it's just bullet points. I never write scripts, because if I like committed myself to writing scripts, I mean, I would never make another video because it would just take me too
Yeah.
long. But then if I'm doing a video where I'm like talking about a lot of movies, then I'll often not write any notes, and I'll just, hold it up and just say a few things about it and put it back down. So yeah, that's basically the process. And then also, like, if I'm doing, like, I do a lot of ranking lists. So if there's a movie I want to talk about that I don't remember very well, I will try to rewatch it. Because I always want to have something to say about any movie that I bring up, rather than just be like, oh, I remember it was pretty good, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I noticed that is something that you're good at. Like I watched your, one of the first videos I watched of you was your Nightmare on Elm Street ranking. And I just noticed every time you brought up one of the movies, like, you had something interesting to say about all of them. It wasn't just like, oh, Freddy's kind of funny in it, blah, blah, blah. So you're good at that too, for sure, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'd always just try to find like something that stands out, right? I mean, I think that's the key, is like,
Yeah.
just, it can be tough sometimes. And yeah, there have been times where like I play around with, am I going to write a script or not? And really, sometimes it's like, you know what? I'll give it a good watch or two, and then I'll just let it kind of fly. Cause I don't know, like, I've always been that guy. Like, I don't, when me and my friends were hanging out in high school in the late 90s or whatever, I was the guy that was like, let's watch The Evil Dead. Like, let's rent Halloween 6 for some ungodly reason. Like, let me talk to you guys about movies, and like my friends would sit around in a semicircle as I just like talked. Like, were you that way growing up? Were you the kind of guy that was like into movies, and you have like a group of friends, or maybe even like your family that you really like connected with film with, that kind of propelled your passion?
Sure. Yeah. When I was like a little kid, I was basically exactly the same as I am now. So very into movies, very into monsters, more into superheroes then than I am now, to be honest. That's one thing that's kind of faded for me a little bit. But yeah, and I grew up in a family that watched a lot of like old movies. So like my dad introduced me to Universal Monsters and like, swashbuckling pirate and Robin Hood movies from the 30s and 40s. And my dad is a big like musical fan too. So I was introduced to a lot of like classic musicals as a kid. So yeah, very into movies then. When I got into high school, I became like a hardcore theater kid. So I got really into like, drama club, and I volunteered at community theater. And then like movies, I still watch them, but like the fandom kind of faded off, because I was like, I would go to school and then I would go to whatever theater, do whatever show I was until bedtime. So that took up all my time. Then when I graduated high school, I realized like I didn't really want to do theater professionally. So like there was kind of no point to keep going then. So then I, got a job, and then the movie fandom came back. And then like in 2013, Movie Pass came out, and I got Movie Pass, and that was like my prime era of going to see like every movie in the theaters. And that's when I started collecting physical media and such. And then it's just been a consistent obsessive fandom from there.
Hell yeah. No, that sounds great. I mean, so as far as, theater goes, were you on stage like you're as a performer, or were you more like in the crew? What kind of theater did you do?
On stage, I primarily did musical theater, although I did plays sometimes, but yeah, I was super into musical theater. Whatever shows I could do. My favorite that I ever did was Guys and Dolls, which is probably my favorite musical, and I got to be the lead in that one, which was really cool. Yeah,
Nice.
so I was always good at the acting and the singing, and the dancing I like struggled through the best I could, but that was one reason I knew I could never do it professionally.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't think I'll ever figure out dancing. I played music and did, played in bands for,
Yeah.
a good part of my 20s and 30s. And that was like my version of dancing is whatever the heck that was that I did on stage while I was playing,
Yeah.
punk rock stuff, whatever. Never,
Yeah.
never had that knack, but maybe that's where you get a little bit of that stream of consciousness ability is that, I mean, clearly just being on stage, I think makes people comfortable, whether it's, theater or, being a musician or whatever, but also just that memory, just being able to recall those things so quickly and have stuff sort of stand out to you. Do you have a bit of a photographic memory, do you think?
No. I think I had a better memory when I was like in high school and such, and I could memorize lines and lyrics. I'm still pretty good. Like I also play guitar, but I'm really bad at memorizing chords. So like I pretty much always need like the chords in front of me, but I can memorize lyrics super easily. But now I don't know. I don't think of myself as having an amazing memory. Like my buddy, a good friend of mine, Chris, he's from the Figure Out Films YouTube channel, which is also a great channel. He has an insane, I feel like he knows like every line from like every movie he's ever seen. And like, I'm not like that. I just, I don't know. I never thought of myself as having an amazing memory. Definitely not photographic memory, but that would be super useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because there are times where I'm like, do I have a little bit of that? And then it's just the cannabis that kind of pushed it out. I don't know. Because yeah, when I was in high school, wasn't doing any of that kind of stuff. And yeah, same kind of thing. I could, me and my brothers would like recite entire movies, I mean, Christmas Vacation or like Ace Ventura or Tommy Boy or, whatever. And speaking of Ace Ventura, because it's a film that came out in 1994, the year of Jim Carrey. You and I both participated in that Rad 9 challenge.
Yeah.
I stayed away from everyone else's videos before I shot mine because I didn't want, it's just like a movie review. Like if I'm going to go see a movie, even if I'm not going to cover it on the channel, like I don't want anything to like poison the well or whatever. So
Sure.
I didn't watch anyone's review or anyone's videos on the Rad 9. And then you and I ended up having like 4 or 5 in common, which was
okay, sweet.
Kind of spooky. And that you were on that stream with your friend Chris from Figure Out Film.
Exactly. Yeah. That my Rad 9 entry, I have kind of a high barrier to entry because it's like over 2 hours, but that's because we just did it as a live stream. So
yeah. I put it on. It was like a couple days ago. I'm like, all right, I want to do my research for the interview, see what's up. But yeah, we both had, let's see if I can remember him. Ed Wood, right?
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, for sure.
In the Mouth of Madness.
Absolutely.
Dumb and Dumber.
For sure.
And then the other one was, what the heck was the other one? Oh my gosh, it's not Speed. No, close.
I'm pulling out my list.
And I'm sitting here saying to myself, Dead Air.
I watched most of yours. I think I might not have finished it.
Oh, New Nightmare.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. New Nightmare. Yeah.
Gotta be. Which my buddy Chris kind of bashed, much to my chagrin.
I think it's like, I know people that are like, not only is that my favorite A Nightmare on Elm Street movie, that's my favorite movie, and then
some people super love it.
Yeah. And then I know, of course there's the other crowd that likes the, the more like flamboyant direction that they took Freddy with the other sequels, I'm kind of like, I just feel like an old soul. I just like that, Wes coming back. It's kind of like the original Legacy, like horror Legacy sequel, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, I don't think anyone would do that now, like, I don't think anyone would go that meta today and to like make it actually about the creators, which is crazy. I really like that movie. It was number 9 on my list. It's probably like mid-tier on my nightmare rankings, so it's not like one of my absolute favorites, but I do think it's really good. And I really like that they brought Freddy back to a place of being scary, because I do think after Freddy's dead and the Dream Child, like you had to dramatically shake it up to bring it back to some kind of a horror level. And my God, Wes Craven did it for sure. He was a really creative guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up a really good point in there about like, you know, that it is more meta than Scream. I think a lot of times it's like that, you know, even I think recently when I've talked about Scream, I watch it all the time because my wife is just obsessed with Scream. So up until recently, I'm like, you know what? It is like, I do think that New Nightmare does push it further than Scream. I mean, Scream like exists in our world, but New Nightmare like really blends, or you know, like yeah, kind of blends those lines or blurs those lines between the reality and you know the film world. And yeah, I mean 100% like actually making Freddy scary, which has got to be one of the toughest jobs ever to do after what they did to him. Can't believe they did that to him. Do you have like you know, a lot of your, you know, your channel is you know, there's a lot of older films on there and everything. Is there like a newer like a newer franchise you're really into, or maybe like a franchise that is sort of dormant that you want to see come back within the world of horror?
Good question. I do really like a lot of new horror movies, so I'm not one of those people that's just like, "Oh, movies suck now. They were only good back in the day." No, I think every era has its good movies and bad movies, but there are some, era like I just super love the 80s, like even a bad movie from there. But yeah, I like a lot of new horror movies. I do think my biggest interest with modern horror movies is the original stuff rather than oh, you know what franchise I think I'm probably the most excited about right now is the Terrifier franchise, actually.
Mm.
That really feels like something just dramatically new and exciting. Because like when I was going into the theater to see Terrifier 2, like I felt nervous. And I never feel that like going into any horror movies because I've seen a million of them. But like I just felt like, oh man, what am I getting myself into? Which is so cool. And like when I see Art the Clown, he makes me uncomfortable. And like there's no other
Yeah.
slasher villain that's like that because I just love slasher villains. They're fun. But like Art the Clown is like genuinely upsetting, which is super impressive. So like I love Terrifier 2. I like Terrifier 1. I didn't when I first saw it. I liked it better the second time. But I'm really excited for Terrifier 3 for sure.
Yeah, that one is just taking the world by storm. You know, I just watched those movies like a couple months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Cecil from the Horror Show channel, who actually, I don't know if you're familiar with the fan film Dylan's New Nightmare. Did you see that one?
No, I heard about it from your first late night guest, Cody. Dude who loves movies. He did a really good
Yeah,
video about it.
yeah, it's pretty damn impressive. I don't know if you're into any of these fan films, but I feel like each one sort of like raises the bar for the next. And you know, getting Miko Hughes to come back to play Dylan was pretty cool. And yeah, Cecil's working on a sequel, so we'll see what happens with that. But he let me borrow the first two Terrifier movies. I had them for like months for this exact reason that you just brought up, that art made me feel uncomfortable. I had to like tuck it away in my cupboard. I didn't want it out. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want my wife to know that I was scared of a clown, you know. I sure as shit couldn't get her to watch it with me.
Oh god. I would not show my wife those movies. She would hate them so much.
Yeah. And the first one, I mean, I can't even get her, like, she won't watch Black Christmas with me or the Child's Play movies just because of the doll. You know, I mean, everyone's got their, you know, the spot that they just don't want to go to with horror. I totally get it.
Sure.
And that first Terrifier movie, I was like, well, this is like, the gore is great, but this is like where's the narrative? Like there's no story.
Yeah, no,
you know.
really.
So when I saw Terrifier 2, I was like, that is awesome, but it's about 45 minutes too long. And that's what it seems like. Maybe that's the last thing that they sort of are going to figure out in Terrifier 3. Cause yeah, I mean, that trailer that dropped, talk about uncomfortable. I had like goosebumps from the first little jump scare to Art.
Nice. I haven't watched it. I almost never seek out trailers. So I pretty much only see trailers if a theater shows them to me, with rare exceptions like Nosferatu. I watched the Nosferatu trailer right away. But yeah, I'll probably try to hold back on the Terrifier 3 trailer because I just want to be surprised when I see it in theaters. But and I will say, I just have to take credit for this. After I saw Terrifier 2, I guested on the Terror Table podcast, which is a great horror podcast. And I guessed on an episode to talk about that. And I said on that episode, I want Terrifier 3 to be a Christmas movie. I said, I want to see Art the Clown in a Santa Claus costume come down a chimney. I just think that's perfect. And they were like, oh, all right, okay. And boom, it's a Christmas movie. I'm so excited.
You spoke it into existence.
I did, man. I did.
That is wild. Yeah, I don't think anyone like I never would have expected that. I certainly wouldn't have called it. That's brilliant. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, speaking of Christmas and you talking about checking out that Nosferatu trailer, you know, I would imagine are you a fan of the previous Robert Eggers films?
Yes. I don't know about The Lighthouse. I saw The Lighthouse and it was just nothing like I expected it to be, or nothing that like
Yeah.
I was sold that it was going to be. So it kind of threw me off, and I haven't rewatched it yet, but I'm a gigantic fan of The Witch and I love
Mhm.
The Northman. And then Nosferatu, like, you know, I love the 20s version, the 70s version, and I'm just a huge fan of Dracula. Nosferatu is just Dracula. So yeah, that's like my most anticipated movie like ever right now. I'm so excited for it.
Are you guys going to check it out on Christmas? Or are you going to go to a pre-screening or something?
I would love to go to some kind of pre-screening. I can't see it on Christmas and I can't see it on Christmas Eve. I don't come from like we see movies on Christmas family. Like we've never done that. And I just have too much family stuff going on. So there's just no way. So I really hope they'll at least like, sometimes my local theaters will do like just like a Wednesday night screening. Because they did for Maxine, although I think Christmas is on a Wednesday. But if they can just at least do a screening on the 23rd or before, I can see it right away. But otherwise, I'm gonna have to wait for the 26th. So this is very intense for me. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was, you know, far be it for me to, you know, act like I know anything, but when they said it was going to come out on Christmas, I was like, that's sort of odd. I was like, I think that's a bit of a gamble. I totally like you had said, there are some families where that's the tradition. Every Christmas they, you know, wear their pajamas and go.
Nosferatu. That's the thing. Like I think the movies that succeed on Christmas releases are movies you can see with the family.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's what, when that trailer came out, I was like, man, they really should be putting that out like right before Halloween and then dropping it on streaming around Christmas if they want to try to get the folks that are like you would be. I mean, if it were hitting streaming, like, yeah, you guys would put on your onesies and grab a bowl of cookies and you'd sit down and watch an Nosferatu at the end of the night, right? Like,
absolutely. They should just switch the Nosferatu and Terrifier 3 release dates, because Terrifier 3 is a Christmas movie, but it's coming out for Halloween.
Well, and I think that's why Terrifier 3 did that. I think they'll go digital like the, you know, first week of December or something. You'll be able to buy it or something like that, you know.
Yeah
they're playing that game smart over there, the Terrifier folks.
They are. They know how to market. My God, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because we're like basically, I mean, I guess there have been some, you know, there have been some horror icons like other than Art the Clown, but he seems to be like the most promising as far as like carving out that spot on the Mount Rushmore of icons, you know, pushing out Ghostface. If we're going to say the other three are Jason, Michael, and Freddy, although, you know, Jason and Freddy, where the hell are they?
Yeah, you know what's funny is nowadays, I mean, I think Freddy or Jason will get pushed out before Ghostface would, because those Scream movies are really popular right now. Scream 6 made a ton of money. It seems like young people really, really love Scream, but I don't know that young people care much about Freddy and Jason anymore, which is sad, but we just haven't gotten any movies from them in so long. But yeah, Art the Clown, he definitely seems to be our newest horror icon. Otherwise, it just seems like most of the horror movies that hit really big now are one-offs. They are like Hereditary and Get Out and The Witch, stuff like that. Yeah. But as far as franchise stuff, yeah, I think Terrifier 3 is the most exciting thing right now.
Yeah, and I really liked, I don't know how you feel about it, but I really enjoyed Thanksgiving a lot.
I liked it. I don't know what I was expecting. I think my one disappointment with it is like the gore is great, the kills are great, but I felt like they made no attempts to try to make that villain scary. So like they even have him like, you know, feed a cat at one point. And there are a lot of kill sequences that are just that are just watching him walk around. And I'm like, well, there isn't really suspense here because like we're just watching him walk around. So I felt like he has a good look. I just felt like they didn't really try to make him scary, but you know, that's okay. I think if I watched it a second time, it wouldn't matter to me anymore, but it was fun. You know, it's nice to get a good Thanksgiving horror movie that you can put on in November every year for sure.
Yeah, to me, it felt like almost like a master class. It was like Eli Roth studied all these, you know, he went back and watched The Prowler and My Bloody Valentine like 100 times each and was like, all right, how am I going to, do something that's sort of similar. To me, it kind of had that vibe, especially, I mean, the iconic look and everything. And hopefully we get, I think the really cool thing is like the first movie's a whodunit, kind of like Scream or My Bloody Valentine. And then we could get a sequel where you just bring that guy back. We know full well who it is. And then it's just a total brutal slasher. You can just, you don't have to forego any of the mystery. So it can be a sequel that's a different style of slasher.
That would be cool to see that actor. I don't want to say who that actor is in case anyone hasn't seen it. It'd be cool to see that actor do that. I don't even know if he would do it, but it would be really cool if he did.
I think he had a really good time. I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff on that film, and he told his agent, he was like, hey, look out for something that's like this. I want to do another slasher, because I think he had a fun time doing Scream 3 and he wanted to try it again. And then I didn't even know this, but that actor is from that area. So he's from that spot in, what is it, Maine, like that Maine, New Hampshire. Cool. And that's like his original accent that he got to like kind of go back to and use, which I thought was like pretty charming.
I did not know that. That's very cool.
He faked his accent to be a star, because like I have 4 older siblings. I've been watching him since like Can't Buy Me Love, like when that was relatively new. What was that, 86? Right, there it is. And that was filmed not too far from where I live, out in down in Tucson.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Right on. Yeah, I really like him. Garrett from Born to Be Rad, you probably know. He talks about his movies a lot, and I've watched like some of his early movies on Garrett's recommendations, and he's just done a lot of good stuff back in the day for sure.
Yeah, really charming, effortlessly charming. And he was voted sexiest man alive at like 61, so that means there's hope for us yet.
Dude, that man aged like wine, because like here, he's a goofy little guy, but then suddenly he got super handsome.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like people care about their health now. So it's like we used to have movie stars that just like drank and smoked constantly. Like if like I love in Jaws the Revenge, and this is totally a tangent, but in Jaws Revenge, when Ellen Brody is like, it was the shark that killed him, and they're like, he had a heart attack, and I'm like, yeah, it was a steady diet full of glasses that were half filled with whiskey and cigarettes and coffee. That's all the guy, like, you think it was the shark that killed him? And yeah, now we have all these stars that are like, they're in their 60s and still look great, and seemingly getting more and more attractive.
Yeah, when you watch like movies from like the 30s and the 40s, like it seems like every time characters walk into a room, they are immediately pouring a glass of straight liquor every time.
Yep. Like, I'm gonna light a cigarette for you. There you go, darling. And then I'm gonna light one for me.
Yeah.
This is just normal. Yeah, people used to look so much older. I was looking at, like, I'm a big music guy. I would imagine you are as well. And looking at like Otis Redding was 27 when he died. And you look at a picture of Otis Redding and you're like, that's a 50-year-old man. Like, that's just how hard life was, back then, I guess. I don't know what the hell it is. It's bizarre to me.
Yeah.
And now with, speaking about music a little bit, I guess I don't hear you talk about music too much. I know we could talk about movies. I like to sometimes mix it up a little bit. So, you get to talk about something different. Did you grow up I know you grew up loving musicals and, doing musical theater, but as far as like, what has like been in your playlist as you've grown up? Was there like a genre you fell in love with in high school and then in your 20s, but then you find yourself always coming back to those kinds of things? Or what? I mean, you're 30 right now, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I'm 31. My dad is a massive music person. Like, he's, with music the way I am with movies. He was always playing in bands when he was young. Like, he had pretty much, whenever you hear like kind of rock sounding music in my videos, it's always from my dad's 80s band, because it's copyright free.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah, he's just been a musician his whole life. He now mostly does a lot of music with his church and such. And so yeah, there was, anytime dad was home, music is in the house. And now I'm the exact same way, where like as soon as I get home from work, I put on music. Like, I just always like music to be on. And with my dad, his number one fandom is definitely Elvis. He's like a massive Elvis guy. So Elvis has been ingrained in me since I was a kid. He was really big on the Beatles. He was mostly really big on like 60s, 70s music. So we listened to a lot of 60s, 70s growing up. Because he was like young in the 80s, but he was always like an old soul in the 80s. So he didn't listen to 80s music. He always listened to old stuff. And also we listened to a lot of classic jazz, like Sinatra and stuff. And that's honestly been like my favorite music ever since I was a kid. Like I've always loved Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Bobby Darin, that kind of stuff. So I've always loved that. And now I listen to a lot of different kind of things, but I mostly like, I like music that's very melodic. So I don't like screaming and I don't like rapping. Like I like melodies. Right now I've started getting really into like folk and folksy country, which is different for me, but that's like kind of been like my newfound love. So I listen to a lot of different kind of things.
Are there any artists that stick out to you right now that you've been digging that you want to throw out there into the ether?
Yeah, I love Camp, which is a band. It's Camp with 2 A's, weirdly enough. Really good, very earthy music. Guy has a very gravelly voice. I love it. I love Lord Huron, also because a lot of his lyrics are kind of spooky. He writes about ghosts a lot, which especially if folk has anything to do with like ghosts or witchcraft, like I love it. I love anything kind of spooky music. So I really like that. I'm in a big Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks phase right now. Like I kind of like just started listening to her. I don't care about the guy in Fleetwood Mac. I can't even remember his name, but I just like Stevie Nicks. And those are the big ones that stand out to me right now.
Is it Lindsey Buckingham? I know he's in there. I don't know if he's the other singer, right?
Because their first band, I believe, was called Buckingham Nicks. So I think you're right about that.
Gotcha. And I'm kind of like ignorant about some of those older bands, but I do have like a lot of like old music fandom. Like I'm a big, the other Elvis, like Elvis Costello is one of my favorites.
Yes, I love My Aim Is True. That's one of my favorite albums.
Yeah. Oh my God. That album's a ripper too.
It's
for like what,
good.
77, 78 or something. And you listen to it and you're like, this is a bit more manic than the Ramones. And everyone says the Ramones were punk. And I'm not saying they're not, but I'm like, if you listen to My Aim Is True, you're like, this album is like right there with it as far as that kind of energy goes,
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
And I'm a huge, my wife and I fell in love with REO Speedwagon, like right around the time that we met. So that's like a band I knew about their like, the ballads and stuff in the 80s. But then we started listening to the records and I'm like, these guys kind of rock too. Like they're known for their ballads, but everything else is way more like driving, just good, American rock and roll,
Yeah. Did you watch Lisa Frankenstein? There's a good line in that about REO Speedwagon. It's funny.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's fun. It's a good time. But she's like, the monster is like looking for something to like heal him, and he's like grabbing her REO Speedwagon record, and she's like, no, this can't heal you. Well, it can, but your soul.
It's true. REO Speedwagon is legit. I've even seen them live a couple times in the last 5 or 6 years or so. Cool. And they're really good, even as older men in their 70s. It's friggin' wild, some of these groups.
Yeah.
Saw Styx and never thought I would like have a Styx phase, but I saw Styx and then had to go have a Styx phase. What can you do?
I don't even know Styx.
So the one, like everyone knows them for, Mr. Roboto is like the one that sticks out, but they're another group that like until I saw them live, I was like, that's a Styx song. Oh, that's a Styx song. There were all these songs that I knew just from like, working in restaurants or whatever the hell, being at a ball game, and had no idea that it was Styx. They have like a way broader catalog than I ever thought. Like they're like really whimsical. Like I would say they're like it's like if you took something like what's the Rush, if you took something like Rush and you made it more accessible for people in the mainstream, but it still had all that whimsy and it still does have technicality. That's the best approximation.
Okay. I kind of hate Rush, which my brother hates me for because he loves Rush.
They're tough to get a handle on, man. They are, they don't care about time signatures. They are, you can't put a click behind that group. So it's like, if you're looking for something that's, like a bit more, like if you're a melody guy, I totally get it, because to me, I think they do have beautiful melodies, but the rhythms are just all over the place. It's like math rock, pretty much.
Yeah.
Or it's something like King Crimson. If King Crimson had a little bit more you know, singing to it. I don't know if you've ever heard of King Crimson, but they're
No.
like the original math rock band from the, gosh, they must have started in the early 70s or something like that. Way ahead of their time. Not really my cup of tea, but I got respect for them. You know what I mean? There are those things when you're like, I don't really like it, but like, I get it. Like, I'm not going to be a jerk about it. Like, I won't be a jerk about Taylor Swift, but can you guys just like stop talking about her all the time? That'd be great.
Oh, my wife is about Taylor Swift the way my dad is about Elvis. Just that's the last concert I've been to is the Eras tour because I took her to it, and you know what? It was pretty fun. It was a fine time.
I mean, yeah, I mean, for performing as much as she does and for as long as she does, I mean, it's very impressive.
It's like 3.5 hours straight.
Like,
crazy.
I definitely respect the work ethic. I don't know, like the genre isn't for me, but that's totally fine. Not everything's going to be for me, and that's cool, you know.
Yeah, me too.
At least she's not like Marvel or Disney that, like, you know, used to like me and then told me to get the hell out. You know, I feel like
she is. I've compared her, like, she is the Marvel of music, though. You know, like, she's the thing that everybody knows, that everybody talks about, like the most mainstream of the medium, you know. So a lot of times, like, my wife will tell me all about the Taylor Swift fandom and what's going on in the fandom, what people are talking about, and I'm like, this sounds like the Star Wars fandom or the Marvel fandom. It's like the same conversations.
That's hilarious. They've got their own Discord on Reddit. It's really ugly. No. If it's anything like the Scream fandom, the Scream fandom on Twitter is wild. Sometimes I just like grab the popcorn and the 3D glasses and just scroll through.
Oh, dude.
You know, it's wild. The kinds of allegiances, you know, they're the people that are like, it's Melissa Barrera or nobody. And I'm like, guys, she'll be okay. She's good. She's getting better, it seems. Like she
will be okay. But I'm a little bit like, I mean, I'll probably watch the next Scream movie, but I don't feel like I care, because honestly, like, the main thing that made me care about those last two Scream movies was Melissa Barrera, because I really like her as an actress. I've liked her before the Scream movies. And I was just really interested in her character. I thought her arc was going to some interesting places. And now that that's over and they're just going to do like Legacy sequel again. But I'm not like the biggest Scream guy, to be honest. Like, I like Scream, but it's not like my franchise by any means.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, where I really love the first film. I think the fourth one is my favorite sequel. That's what I put in my ranking. I was like, this is the one that's sort of like, you know, having Wes come back and sort of like raising the bar and being like, you know what, I can make it as bloody as films are now. Like, I'm not just going to make a movie like the way I used to make it. I thought it was a really cool, you know, last hurrah for him in that franchise. And like Emma Roberts, just like, she could have cruised through her career. Like, this is the thing I always say about her. Like, she's got the pedigree. She could have been in all sorts of rom-coms. She could have made her paycheck. People would know her because of who her dad is and who her aunt is, right? But she has embraced horror, and she really like goes for it in that movie. It was like watching Orson Welles at the end of Citizen Kane. It's like, man, she's gonna throw a fit and cut herself here, like, for real, like Leonardo in Django. You know, this is wild.
Yeah, I think Scream 4 has the second best killer reveal after the first one. Most of the other killer reveals are like, you know, they're fine, but I think 1 and 4 are the best ones.
Yeah, I felt like with the newer ones, it was this the killer reveals that really like kind of deflated my, like, the way I felt about him. It's the last thing you see. I thought, like, I predicted the 1 and 5, which I had never really done before, where I was like, oh, and within the first 20 minutes, I was like, it's going to be these people.
It was almost like so obvious that, like, I didn't predict it, where I was like, well, they're not going to do that. And then they did that. I'm like, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
5 is my least favorite Scream movie, to be honest. I think it's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I don't know what it is with me and radio silence. Like, I just can't. I'm like, they just can't. They don't do it for me. They don't push me over the edge of like loving what they do. Like, I think what they do is like fine. Like, even Abigail, I was like, Abigail has some things I really like, but like, you know, I thought it could have been way. I feel like if you're gonna show what you show in the trailer, then just cut to the chase a little bit quicker, and it could have been about an hour and 35 minutes, and it would have been like just the perfect little vampire movie. But it kind of reminded me of House on Haunted Hill from 1999, which I did enjoy.
Oh, great movie. I really like Abigail, and I really like Ready or Not, and I really like Scream 6. So I think it's just Scream 5 that I'm not as big a fan of. But Radio Silence is they're very popcorn, they're very mainstream. So I can, understand like maybe getting a little bored with it and feeling like I feel like I've seen this before, because you probably have.
Yeah, and it is interesting, like, to take on, only a 2-movie run is like a unique sort of experience too. Like, because the first 4 Scream movies made by the same people, and then for these guys to only take on the 2. But it is cool to see them kind of get to do their own thing and carve out that space, for themselves, which you certainly have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Scream 7, I mean, like, the only way I could see him like really making it happen is like, let's make it like New Nightmare, right? Let's make it to where the actors are playing themselves. There's a real killer in the real world, and he's sick of these damn movies.
That's what would make me interested in it, because like, if it's just like, oh no, Sydney's being stalked by Ghostface again, I'm like, oh come on, guys. Like, I don't know. I feel like I've seen that a million times. But also, if you did that, you could bring David Arquette back. Should be cool.
And that's the way they could bring everyone back. They could bring in Matthew Lillard. They could bring Skeet back and not have a weird like AI version of Skeet, or
that stuff is
de-aged. Yeah, it's odd because it's like now you're entering something into this. It seems so out of canon. Although I guess in part 3 she does have that weird ghost mom thing. Sydney, part 3, like, there are parts about it that I've like warmed so much more up to as time has gone on, but the ghost mom is the stuff that I'm like, what's going on here? Like, this is not Scream.
I've actually only seen Scream 3 once. That's the only Scream movie that I've only seen one time. So I don't even really remember the ghost mom. I'm usually fine with any horror franchise bringing in supernatural elements, because I like supernatural elements, so that's fine. I think my issue with Ghost Skeet Ulrich is he's almost like this spirit guide. And I'm like, isn't this guy a serial killer who like slaughtered so many people? But he's like, I don't know. It doesn't really make any sense to me. It's very weird.
Well, and how does she know his personality? Like, she never knew him.
Yeah.
How is he like?
He
it's
must
weird
be an actual ghost. He has to be.
Yeah, but it's exactly like it's not in her head. So in the Scream universe, like, ghosts do exist. They just don't exist in every movie.
Yeah.
So we could have. We could have a
you
ghost.
Never know when a ghost is around,
Yeah, Ghost Stu could come back with a TV on his head. It would be hilarious. Let's just mix.
You know what?
Scream and Beetlejuice. Just mix them together.
Sure. Go for it. I mean, at this point, you're on what, the 7th movie? Do whatever. I don't care anymore. That's why, like, I don't know. Like, I'm usually fine with franchises just doing insane things at a certain point, because I'm just like, at a certain point, you just got to keep it fresh. That's why, I mean, I already kind of hinted on this stream that I love Halloween 6, and I do, because I'm like, it's the 6th Halloween movie. Like, do something weird. I don't want to just watch Michael Myers just walk around and kill people again. And boy, oh boy, do they ever do something weird. And I respect it.
Yeah, I have that's one of the movies that I like more and more, because that's my favorite franchise as far as like slashers go. Michael's just my guy. I love him. And I enjoyed it. Like, I did make that crack about making my friends watch it, which I did. I made my friends watch it, but I didn't. Also, we watched all the Evil Dead movies in one night. It was the first time we ever saw them, and I'll remember it forever. We stayed up till like 4 a.m. I grew up in Southeast Alaska, and it was like light by the time that we went to bed because it was the middle of the summer. It was great. But part 6 is like, I think I found a totally new love for it. And I don't think it's like completely the superior cut, but that producer's cut does a few things that I really, really love that make me feel like I'm watching something that's influenced by the original movie and not so much influenced by like an early to mid 90s metal music video.
100% agree. It's the producer's cut that made me fall in love with it, because like it has such a great look, it has such a great score, it has such a great just Halloweeny holiday feel, which the original cut didn't really to me. It also has I think it has a much better ending, because I just find the ending of the original cut just like such a downer. But the end of the producer's cut is insane, but in kind of a cool way, where it's like, how could you possibly sequelize that? And they don't, which is kind of too bad. Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, hey, even if they just brought in the mask from 6 for H2O, which I think they do that in the first scene of H2O, that movie would have been infinitely better if it just had like one mask that looked good. even if it were the Stan Winston mask for the whole time, it would be better. I don't love that mask, but I love the Curse mask. It's one of my favorite masks in the whole franchise.
It's the first time the mask looked good since 2. You might even say since 1. What is the deal with the Halloween mask, man? Why can't they get that right? It's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know if it was something where Shatner at some point was like, you can't use that mold anymore, you know, or the Don Post company or whoever it was like, you have to use something different. But to me, it's like, why, when they brought it back for 2018, they got so close. Like the approximation's great. And then the, really you know, the 78 flashback scene from Kills, I think that mask looks really good too. So it is just like, you know, honestly, I think what it is, because now that I'm talking to so many more people about movies, they just didn't think we were going to watch these movies like 100 times and talk about them on YouTube. Like, if only they knew about YouTube, Daniel, they would have gotten that mask right. That everyone loves Halloween 4. And I'm like, I hear you, but he looks terrible. Like, that's the most
fine with Halloween
thing.
4. It's Halloween 5 I can't handle, but I love the movie Halloween 4, so I can forgive the mask.
Yeah, it's a great like soft reboot kind of thing. It's kind of what I think of it as. But I think George P. Wilbur looks even better in 6 than he looked in part 4. I kind of like the. He does, I know everyone says he's like kind of fat or whatever, but I'm like, I don't know. He just looks like filled out. You know,
he's jacked, Michael. Yeah, you know what has he been doing for the past year? He's been doing chin ups. He's been doing push ups.
Yeah, he's getting older. Older men sometimes get a bit more barrel chested. You know what? We're fat shaming Michael Myers, guys. That is not cool. There's that great shot when he walks down the hallway and he's sort of like got this swagger. Like he's got his gut in front of him. If you know what I'm talking about, like the lights are flashing on him. He's just like, and I love it. I love it.
See, that's funny because I never thought of him as fat. I always thought he was jacked. I was like, look at jacked Michael over here.
I think he just looks not as slender as he usually does, I suppose. But there are great shots, you know, across the street with the lightning flashing when the little kid, you know, sees him and everything. And I think you're absolutely right about the fall feel. That producer's cut has those long, like when she's at the school and then when she comes home from the college, they have those shots where it's just following her walking. And I'm like, this reminds me of the first movie. Like, why did you take this out of the movie? Like, this is great, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's so much of what I watched the Halloween franchise for, is for that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. The mood, the atmosphere, all the stuff Dave McCrae talks about, which is important in that kind of movie. You know, not every slasher has to have it, but I feel like it's one of those elements that makes Halloween and not Friday the 13th, you know?
Yeah, agreed. Friday the 13th that's a summer franchise for me.
Yeah, and just way more like kind of bubblegummy, like a bit more accessible, you know, perhaps. Like my wife and I will just throw one of those on like while we're doing chores or whatever. You know, it's just like,
oh yeah, they're great background movies. I love that franchise too, for sure.
We had when on our first date, we went out on a Friday the 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. And I made her watch Jason Lives.
Well, that makes sense. That's a super fun movie. Like that's just total bubblegum for sure.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. Megan and Tommy are just the perfect couple there. It's a fun one. A good love letter to like the old kind of like the movies that you like to talk about, you know? Like it has that feel to it, you know?
Oh, especially the opening scene in the graveyard. Like one time, just like on Twitter, I saw somebody post a video of that scene, but they put it in black and white. And I'm usually not a big fan of just turning color movies to black and white, because I think color movies are color and black and white movies are black and white, leave them be. But that scene looked really cool in black and white. Like it really looked like a classic monster movie. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, I've heard I think it's on the commentary for the movie. Tom McLaughlin, the writer and director, said that he pitched that to Paramount. He was like, let me open up the movie. Then once like Jason does the slash thing and we go to the credits, we bring in the color, but like, let me open it black and white. And they're like, no. Like
that's such a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been fun, because it does have those Frankenstein vibes. And then even, you know, I think a lot of the stuff with Megan and Tommy just kind of has that like old, you know, creature feature 50s, 60s kind of thing, where the teenage couple needs to figure out how to kill the blob or, you know, whatever it is, or The
Yeah.
Creeping Terror, all those movies I've watched on Mystery Science
Yeah.
Theater 3000 that all have that.
That's a good observation. Yeah. There's a guy in the chat, Mud Nelson, who's
Yeah,
talking
what's he
shit on
got?
the original Halloween. Like, what are you doing, man?
Let me see here. Oh, when you're 10 and see Rob Zombie's Halloween, it's way scarier than that boring ass original.
Come on,
Well,
man.
so I think the interesting thing there, Gavin, is like I have this conversation with people about Jaws. It's like, depending on how old they were when they saw it, it has a huge effect, regardless of the generation you're from. It's like, if you don't see a movie like Jaws until you're in your 20s, you're going to be like, oh, that shark looks fake. But if you see it when you're like 4, like I did, you're like, I love this movie. It's the best thing I've ever seen. And I think, yeah, like, Gavin, I'm guessing you saw Rob Zombie's Halloween before the original. That's what that leads me to think, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a fan of Rob Zombie's Halloween, but I do love his sequel because it's different.
I actually like both of them. I'm kind of a Rob Zombie apologist, so I like most of his movies. But I do think 2 is undoubtedly better for sure. I think Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is like a fantastic movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of those where it's like people, kind of said similar things about Halloween Ends, where it's just like, tearing it down. And I'm sort of like, well, you still have like 8 or 9 of these movies that all have the same thing that you're looking for. So, like, it's okay to do something different. It's also okay to like not like it. And it's okay to say that it's a well-made film that you just don't like the story. Because I think some folks are just like, I think the way that we're sort of being pushed is like, you either say it's shit or you say it's the best thing ever. The idea of having a conversation or having like nuance with stuff is just sort of being pushed out. Like, no, don't do that. Because if you say one thing in defense of, people just assume that you love it, right? So but I really enjoyed Ends.
I did too.
I kind of I knew what was coming. And yeah, maybe it would have made a better next film to like restart the franchise. But it looks great. It's got arguably the best soundtrack out of those 3.
Really good.
And the performances are great. I think Annie Matichak puts in her best performance as Allison. And I think Rowan Campbell is fantastic. I had no idea who he was. Watched him in that movie, believed every little bit of it, I
love Corey Cunningham. Yeah, I really didn't like Halloween Kills because I thought it was like boring. It's just like it has almost no plot, and it's just like Michael Myers walking around killing people and then a bunch of dumb townspeople running around. And I didn't like it. And in order to see Halloween Ends, I was like so relieved that it had an actual plot. And like the plot is messy for sure, and it doesn't always make a lot of sense, but it had like things going on for me to like pay attention to and engage in. And I did really like the whole like doomed lovers storyline between Corey and Allison. I thought all that was really cool. And
yeah,
I just kind of wish they committed to it the whole way, because they kind of like, they're building up this really interesting movie. And at the end, they kind of throw it away and just go for a Michael Laurie showdown, which I'm not super interested in.
Yeah, it's just like when Corey stabs himself in the neck, that was like the gut punch of the movie for me. And the rest was just like, okay, I'm paying attention and I'm watching, but I was like, no, like I wanted him, regardless of how it all shook out. Like I was like, this guy's going to be our new Michael. And like, what a cool idea. Cause there are shots of him walking around, like, especially when he goes to the radio station and then he goes to the junkyard, where I'm like, that's Michael. Like he just plays him so perfectly. And I'm pretty sure in a lot of those shots, it really was Rowan, like in the outfit. Cause he does look a little smaller. Maybe they got a stunt guy for some of it, but there's even that shot where they shoot him from down below and he kind of has the popped collar and he looks so much like Dick Warlock from Halloween 2 that I'm like, like what just happened there? Like, that's the beauty when they get the mask right. That's the beauty of it, is like every kind of lighting they put it under, it looks a little bit different. Like, have you ever noticed that when you watch Halloween, like the ones with good masks?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think Michael just has the best look of all of the slashers. Like, there's the hockey mask is iconic, the Freddy glove, it's iconic, but I think like Michael, I think he just looks so freaking cool. I just love to see him on screen.
Yeah, he is.
But he's the least consistent of all of them in terms of how he looks.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's like the movies that are good in that series are really good, and the movies that aren't, you're like, oh
Mhm.
God, get away from me. But yeah, to me, he's like Dracula. He's gonna be the one that lives on in like hundreds of years. People are still gonna be talking about Michael Myers. He is.
Mhm.
Just by calling him the boogeyman, we're gonna, history is gonna look back on him as like the definitive boogeyman, even though that term existed for who knows how long. I'm guessing 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and it's funny because yeah, I've got some friends that are like Cecil from the horror show loves to say, oh, he's the walking wall. And I'm
What?
like, yeah, it's like that there's no personality. He's like, even Jason has a little bit of personality. And I'm like,
Mm.
yeah, but that's what I like. I like the mystery. I like that we don't know. That makes him interesting to me. Like in 2018, when they follow him around in that tracking shot, yes, the shot is beautiful. Everything looks and sounds great. But to me, it's like, what's Michael going to do? Like I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, and I do think I just like that he doesn't exactly feel like a person. Like Jason does feel like a person, like he's I don't know if I want to say a mentally challenged person, but he basically is, and he's confused about his mother and such, and therefore he's
Mhm.
running around slaughtering people. But Michael is technically a person, but he doesn't feel like one, and that and Loomis has 10,000 monologues to underscore that point. And and I like that. I think it's interesting and it's spooky for sure.
Yeah, he's got yeah, with Michael there's just that like you said, you're always a fan of bringing in the supernatural element. I like that with Michael it's ambiguous. It's like it's supernatural when it needs to be, and then he's a man when he needs to be. Like it's this really there is something like, it's folklore at its heart even though it takes place in the suburbs. It really does have that kind
Mhm.
of vibe. And like that's what I've always loved about Michael. That's why I really liked um to Gavin's point, which Gavin's one of our great subs over here. He's like, I just talk shit for fun, Daniel. It's kind of
Yeah,
my thing.
it's all good, man. I was just joking too.
Like when we tier rank stuff, he's like, I'm calling the cops, Davey. Like you put that in the wrong, how dare you say that about that movie? Yeah, good fun. And yeah, with Michael, it's like, what was I saying? The folklore thing and the supernatural something something. Well, I kind of lost it talking about Gavin, but there you go. Gavin, one of our great subscribers right there. But I do like that, there is that element there, but that it's not clearly defined,
Mhm.
and I like that when Michael's smaller. That's what I was going to say. To Gavin's point about Rob Zombie's being scarier, I disagree because the thing that scares me is the person that's just like a regular sized person that's like watching you and stalking you and waiting for the perfect time to
Mhm.
kill, rather than the guy that's like 6'8" that could just literally break through the door like the Kool-Aid man, is less scary to me. But I totally can understand how it'd be more scary. It's just like fast zombies and slow zombies. Fast zombies, I'm like, might as well give up. They're gonna get you like really quick. Slow zombies represent death. That's why they're so scary. Do you have a
I
preference on slow
agree.
zombies?
Slow zombies for sure. Cause like I mean, I love like the George Romero movies for sure. And
Mm,
it, I like in The Walking Dead is really good about this. I watched Walking Dead for the first 3 seasons and then I just felt like I had enough. But it's really good about just kind of walking around and you see one of the you just come across a zombie and it's just kind of stumbling around. And I don't know, there's something just very atmospheric about that. And if it's a fast zombie, like you just turn a corner and there it is, and boom, you're dead. But you
yeah.
can just turn a corner and there it is, and like nothing happens. It's just kind of stumbling around. And it's very spooky. So I
Hmm.
really like that.
Yeah, I like that the fast zombies are like, we're gonna go for the throat right away. And I like that,
Yeah.
like, yeah, what you're saying about the slower zombies is they do have like their unique personalities. There are some of the slower zombies that will go for the bite. Then there's some that'll sort of look at you confused. Maybe there's like a little bit of that soul still left in them, like Bub from Day of the Dead or something like
Hmm.
that. Or the zombie that holds the gun in Dawn of the Dead. There's varying, it's like this spectrum of zombies. Whereas in the fast zombie movies, it's just, I don't know. For me, I'm just like, you might as well lay down. But I mean, I do love Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake. I think was probably the best version of Fast Zombies that I've seen.
Probably. I liked it. I don't think there's any fast zombie movies that I put like Train to Busan, I think is fast zombies. I think I would probably put that as my
That's
favorite fast zombie
that
movie.
is a really good one. And I thought that one, I didn't see that until just recently. I did a thing with Barry from Wolfman's Got Nards where we talked about our top 10 zombie movies, and I was like, I have to watch a few of these before I put together this list, because I'm doing the whole subgenre a disservice if I don't watch Train to Busan. And I love that it does pay respect to all that Romero stuff, and then also kind of like created a couple of its own rules, but rules that work within those confines, which I don't think I'd ever seen anyone do before.
Yeah, that's like one of the most emotional zombie movies ever made too.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. It is. Yeah. That movie, gut punch after gut punch. Yeah.
Great movie.
And to round things out here, we got about 10 minutes left, or, ish. Don't want to keep you up too late. You talked about Longlegs and Maxine. I have not seen Maxine yet, but your video on Longlegs and Maxine, we're like on the exact same page on Longlegs. I was like, yes, because I was worried when I saw the title. I was like, oh no, is he going to end up not liking both of these? And that movie is a movie that really plays with that like perfect amount of like supernatural. It like for like a crime thriller, I was like, oh man, they put in the perfect measurement there. Is that something that, did you expect that going into the movie, that there'd be that kind of element, or did you think it was just going to be kind of a straight up crime thriller?
I thought it was going to be a straight up crime thriller, which like I was okay with, but I'm not super interested in serial killers. Unless it's like slashers like Michael Myers. I kind of consider that a different category. And I'm not interested in true crime. I mostly just kind of don't want to know. Like I know more about Jeffrey Dahmer than I wish I knew. Like that's the kind of stuff I don't want in my head. But I was going to see it partially. Well, I really like the director and I like Micah Monroe, and Nicolas Cage is probably my favorite working actor right now. But I was elated with the supernatural elements. Like I just loved it because I love satanic horror. And I'm just much more interested in like vampires and ghosts and werewolves and Satan, all that than like serial killers for sure. Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm a huge fan of Oz Perkins' film, The Blackcoat's Daughter. And I feel like those are like brother-sister movies. Like they go together so well. And I wasn't expecting that.
I need to see that one. I've yet to see it. So awesome. This was actually my introduction to Osgood Perkins. And oh man, I just felt like from the very first frame, he's just sort of like putting you right in that mood. Him and the crew, man, they just cater you and usher you into their world. And then the credits, like the stark red and black. And then every time the card changed, I was still seeing, every time I blinked, I saw the names of the people on the previous card. And I'm like, this movie is hypnotizing me. Like that's what they're like. They are, it is a true like film experience where you sit down and they're going to wash you of the world that you knew before you walked in, and you're going to walk out a different person. And that hour and 40 minutes, they're taking you on their journey. And that's the way that they just get you primed for it. And the deliberate placement and movement of the camera, like to me, I get like Kubrick vibes. I even get like Wes Anderson vibes from the way the movie.
I get shot. That in terms of how people are centered so much and there's all this empty space around them. That makes sense.
Yeah. And even, it's just sometimes the camera would just sit there. I love that, and maybe you have an appreciation for something like this being a theater guy. When the camera, there's one of those scenes where it shows what happens with one of the families, the camera's in the same spot and things are obscured because the camera isn't moving while the action's going on in the other room. And I thought that was like really creative to just literally be a fly on the wall,
Yeah. I agree. Oh, and Blackcoat's Daughter has Emma Roberts, who you just talking about.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. I have the weirdest blind spots for some things. Admittedly, my wife and I just like to kind of hang out with our cats and just sort of kick it. And so, going out into the world, of course I do it and everything. But one thing that doing this channel for the last year has taught me is like, I need to definitely like open up, watch some more of these, movies that I've missed in genres that I really love. And especially after watching Longlegs, like I don't need to be convinced anymore. Like I'll watch everything Osgood Perkins does from here on out.
Well, I certainly understand not always wanting to go out to the theater because I have a toddler at home and it's harder than ever to get out to the theater now. So it's always a treat when I get to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you guys posted that picture. You've got like you do a July Halloween celebration to kind of like kick it into gear.
We did. We started it the year that you would expect us to start it, which was 2020. So, you know, things are a little bummer in 2020. We were stuck at home. So yeah, we always get neither of us are summer people. So we always get really sick of the heat. So we always pick a day in July to just kind of pretend it's October. And we've always called it Summer Spooky Day. It seems like it's kind of become a thing now, and people call it Summerween, which is a pretty good name, but either way you want to go. And we always watch like usually like fun spooky movies, like often like Gateway, kids horror, stuff like that, because we really like that stuff. And it was fun to show some of those kind of movies to my son. He loved Casper. He was like glued to the screen for Casper, which was super fun. But yeah, it's just been a tradition. He's about 1.5.
Oh, okay. 1.5. Yeah, man, that's got to be so awesome. I think one of the greatest things about having kids is, you know, you force your interests on them and make them love what you love. And if they don't, they can just get the hell out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you never know how it's going to go. So far, he seems to love Halloween stuff. So he gets super excited if he sees pumpkins or if he sees like white sheet ghosts. We have like a white sheet ghost hung up in the corner of the living room all the time because we put it up one Halloween and we've never taken it down. So it's always there and he loves it. He always gets so excited when he sees it. He points at it and yells, "Ghost!" So far he's loving the spooky stuff, which is making me happy.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I think I have one more question for you, because when you had talked about musical theater and that you love musicals, your thoughts on Frank Oz's Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've seen the movie. I also saw like a high school production of it, one that I wasn't in, but went to like a friend's high school to watch it, which was fun. But yeah, I like it. I don't think I consider it one of my absolute top favorites, but it's lots of fun. A lot of great music for sure.
When was the last time you saw it?
Maybe 3 or 4 years ago or so.
Okay. Yeah, I really dig that one. I grew up like, you know, with musicals, it's like sometimes I really love them, sometimes I don't. Sometimes the ones I love are totally cheesy. Like I love Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Like, I don't know. Like, you know, it's like some of those really get me. Whereas like not all the Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff really works, but like that one, you know, I'm into that one. And then
sure.
Yeah, I don't know what it was with Little Shop for me. Maybe it was like being into horror as a kid. And then also like Rick Moranis was kind of like, you know, a young comedic star when I was young, but I just, fell in love with that. I love how they do in that movie. There's like these really awesome, like long camera shots. You can tell they, you know, use these big stages and everything. And I was like, that's a really creative idea to like shoot it as if you kind of were on a stage, you know, to sort of like, let's make it like a theater production, you know, when we can.
Yeah, they do that really well. It's a very fun movie. I see Mud Nelson shouting out Tim Burton, Sweeney Todd. Huge fan of that movie too. Fantastic.
That's a good one. Yeah, Tim, and he's coming back in a big way here with Beetlejuice. Have you been avoiding those trailers?
No, I saw the first trailer. Very excited for it. I love Beetlejuice. I'm one of the few people that doesn't think Tim Burton's lost it. I think he does have a lot of good stuff in the 2000s. Hot take, I guess. So I'm very excited for that movie.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. What did it 2000 like Sleepy Hollow? Love it.
Yeah, that's my favorite Tim Burton.
That to me, that's like got that Hammer feel.
It does. Like, it's basically his tribute to Hammer. It's even got a lot of actors from Hammer films too.
Yeah, and half of them were in the Harry Potter movies, so it's like you got a little overlap there too.
Yeah, the guy who just passed away, who was Dumbledore, Michael Gambon.
He's in there. Then there's the guy that plays the Harry's uncle. He's in there too, the big boy.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not really a Harry Potter guy. I read the first 4 books, watched the first 4 movies, and then I never finished the 5th book, and that was, you know, like 15 years ago or something. So
yeah, my wife, she's the expert. I mean, I've seen the movies, but mostly because she, you know, every November she wants to watch them. They're fine. It's fine. I don't know.
Harry Potter was evil in my household growing up. We were taught that Harry Potter is of the devil and you do not read that. So it wasn't until I got older where I could make my own decisions that I started reading them. And I really like them. It's a lot of books and I'm not the greatest reader. So I just kind of fell off.
Yeah, evil. It's interesting. Like if it, you know, I guess is so, you know, you're a big witch fan. This will be my last one, I promise. you're a big fan of like witch
It's all
movies,
good,
right?
man.
Is that something that you've always loved, or is that something that was
Yeah.
there a little bit of like sort of a punk rock rebellion kind of thing going on where you're like, oh, check out these damn witch movies?
I don't really think about that anymore because like also my parents don't care about the Harry Potter thing anymore. It was very much like it was a fad for like
Mm-hmm.
Christians in the 2000s to be against Harry Potter, and now nobody cares anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just no, I it was like a year ago or so that I just thought, what are the witch movies? Because people talk about witches as like one of the biggest, icons of horror, like vampires and werewolves. But like it's not as obvious what the classic witch movies are as it is with vampires
Mm-hmm.
and werewolves. So I just thought, like, well, what are they? And I just started watching a bunch, and then I made a video on it, and it's still my biggest video. It hit really big. So yeah, I have become though progressively more fascinated by witch movies and also just witchcraft in general in terms of like folklore and its history. So I find it very,
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. I never thought of it as rebellion, but hey, maybe it is. I don't know.
You got to do something rebellious, right? You know?
Yeah. And I'm a
You're,
pretty clean cut guy, so I got to find something rebellious to do.
I get that vibe, Daniel. I get that vibe. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us, man. I know you gotta, go to work and everything, and
Not now, but in the morning.
you have to go to work right now. Actually, they called me to tell
Oh,
you that you have to go in right now. But yeah, really appreciate you carving out some time for us.
sure, man.
Again, man, I adore the channel, guys. If you haven't
Thank you.
subbed over there yet, you've got to go check out his channel. So I put links for the Instagram and the YouTube channel for the Cobwebs channel in the description below. And yeah, guys, if you like physical media, if you love, old school horror movies, if you like just listening to somebody talk about movies and feeling like you're hanging out with a bud, Daniel is the place, or the guy to do it, and his channel is the place to do it. There you go. And
Thanks,
let's see
dude.
here.
I appreciate it.
I wanted to share this one. Boom, there we go. Tales from the Shelf. Mark says big fan of Daniel's channel. He's filling a niche
Thanks,
that
dude.
isn't being served right now for horror fans. Yeah, I really love that you mix the mix of the physical media element with the reviews and everything. I think it's a really nice, like, I see a lot of people that talk about more of the actual physical item, not so much the movie. So I really enjoy that review element. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
best of luck with the channel. Hope you guys have a great rest of your summer here. And we'll get your kid will be watching Halloween before you know it. It'll just be,
I'm excited.
they'll be sitting down for Terrifier 6 with you.
Hell yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, dude. Good to meet you.
Yep, you too. Take care.